I'm going to try to do the arrow today. But first, I'm going to see if I can figure out how to add the normals. I think I'm just gonna copy this there. I can use the tangent that I'm calculating before outside of the function, but I don't think it's the same tangent that it's talking about here. It might be because the tangent is on other coordinates. Uh, I think normals are necessary for the texture. If you wanna put texture on the tube, or for lighting actually. Lighting probably uses normals. I'm just gonna do it like this. Actually, normal magnitude should be just the length here. Is it gonna complain there because of the square root function, I think? Yeah. It worked. So the idea that I have for the arrow is on the... I'm gonna ask Perplexity there to see if I... Like, how can I get the last point? Yeah, maybe... So last point, then last normal and binormal. So I'll calculate outside after I calculate the indices for the... maybe not. Uh, actually, yes, because I need to calculate them. I'm gonna use the same arrays for the whole thing because it's a lot simpler, and then I can use the same mesh there. But then I just separate the way that I create the indices and the vertices, and then I'm obviously gonna push at the ends. So the final points on the curve, I create the arrow based on the height, and then I'm gonna have to think about the... I have to think about the distance from one sphere to the other. But I think that the difference makes more sense on the class, the graph edge class. So this class here. So I think to calculate the cylinder, probably the easiest way is just to get the tangent of the last point, because that encodes the direction, then get the normal and the binormal to recalculate the cylinder based on the arrow circle, arrow radius. So it's just gonna be the same as the last circle, basically, and then the only difference is that it's gonna be the indices function. Yeah. So you take the tangent, the normalized tangent, and then you multiply by the height, I think. And then you create the circle based on the normal and binormal, and then you connect the indices. So the main thing that I'm not really sure is which point to add first. I think you should probably add the last point should probably be the one that creates the cylinder. So like the points at there's gonna be a projection, not a projection, but it's like on the same direction as the tangents. And decrease the radius as well from last time. So let me see here. Yeah, so now it seems to be working. So last time that I did the normals, I was pushing the normals from the outside of the function. That's obviously wrong because I'm just pushing one normal, which is the point that I'm using the center, let's say, of the circle to create the circle. And instead of doing that, you have to put the normal for each vertex, I think, you put there. But now it seems to be working. Obviously, I'm not 100% sure if the value is correct, but I think it doesn't matter that much. It seems to be correct, so just getting the tangent from the calculation that I'm using to create the vertex point here. It's basically the same, I think, calculation. Actually, maybe not. So maybe this is wrong. Let me think of this. I'm just inverting the sine or cosine. But the thing that is weird is that this should be dependent on the position of this point, I think. So I think it's probably better to get the tangent from the vertex position. Not really sure how. Or I can reuse the tangent from the... I think it probably makes more sense to reuse the tangent from the outside. So just pass the tangent to this function. And then... Like the thing is that the normal is not going to be... Like this normal is not going to be the same for every point because obviously it rotates. So it should be the normal adjusted to the rotation of the points. I think this is just the cross product that is doing here from the tangent to the normal. One thing that I clarified recently that I already knew, but I was thinking about it. I confused the dot product with the cross product because the dot product is the one that I'm most used to, which is just a normal product between two different matrices or vectors. You just put one as a column, the other one as a row, and then you multiply the members of each one and add each one. And that's the dot product. But the cross product is pretty much the determinant of a matrix, adding composed of the two different vectors you're gonna do the cross product with, adding the unit vector, which is I, j, and k, which I think that is there is something similar to that and the quaternion rotation. I think there is a similarity there. But the nuances of that, I'm still not 100% sure how it works. I think there's something there, but it's kind of difficult to think about. But it's basically multiplying the two vectors, then you get the result's going to be the area of the vector, and then you rotate by the sign, I think. So it changes the magnitude of the final vector, and it changes the orientation, I think. But usually use only to get the orientation, then you divide by the magnitude to get the same vector, let's say, just with the differences in rotation to get the parallel between the two different vectors. So the question is whether or not I spend time trying to figure this out, or because I think here the adjustments that I should make is based on the relative position. So I should probably take the position of the point, the vertex, and then get the normal from that. I'm not sure how to do this. This normal is going to be the normal from the center point, let's say. I think I'm gonna leave it like this and I'll think about this later because it's not that important to me now. So yeah, let me think about the cylinder. So what kind of information do I need to create a cylinder? I can look it up on their implementation of the cylinder, but I think their implementation is going to be more complicated because they allow different ratios, I think. And what I want to do is just the arrow. I'm just gonna do it off the top because I think I know what I need here. So the only question is whether or not I put the normals as well. So do the same calculation for the normals. For the last points, it's gonna be easier to get the normals. So basically, the only thing that is gonna change is the radius from here. So maybe I should change this and make it dependent, like, on the radius that I pass as an argument. I'm just gonna copy because yeah. So I'm gonna copy this one. I'm gonna make this a function of the radius, if it's possible to do it here. If it is not possible to do it here, I do it on the constructor, I think. But it's probably better to make it a function as of the radius should maintain like a ratio. And arrow heights. Copy this one as well. Hey, what's up? I think I need the same stuff from the previous one and the tangents. Not sure if I need the tangent or I can do it just based on the points. The point position. I guess the easiest way is also to... I was contemplating which one should do it, if I should get the values from the vectors here, or I can just create 3 different variables here on this one. And then each time on the iteration, just make the variables equal to the current values here. Oh, there's another thing that I was gonna do is to see. I think I already deleted, or maybe the acceleration I don't need. So I think I'm gonna do it just the easiest way possible because it's not that big of a deal. I think it's just one extra assignment per cycle, let's say. So one way would be to get the last value of the vector and then derive everything from that by calling the functions again. The other way is I just create 3 different values here, or however many values I need here. Probably it can be the 3, so I don't have to compute again. And then I basically reuse. So vector 3, arrow position. We'll do an arrow start position. Arrow start by normal. And then after I do this stuff here, I just make it equal. Because that way, just gonna store the value of the last one. Then I use these values here after I generate the indices here. So let me think of this. Here is gonna be basically the same thing from the other function. I think it's just easier. There's another thing, I can just change this function, so instead of using the radios, I just accept as an argument. Then for the ones inside there, I pass the circle from the thing. Hmm. I think it's just easier, like it's not that big of a deal to repeat, and it makes it easier to understand what's going on, I think. Maybe I'll change this later. Because I don't wanna... I guess putting an argument is not that big of a deal. Maybe... So I think I'm gonna put the argument here. Yeah, I think it's probably better to put the argument. Then I pass. So floats, radios, circle radios. It's probably better to do this like this, because then I don't need to create the other function there. Yes. Actually, now that I think about it, I'm gonna have to. So, but I guess I can. Actually, I'm gonna need this one, but then I call from the other one. Yeah, that's what I was gonna do. Yeah, now that I think about it, it's not gonna be very good. Yeah, so it's easier to just separate. Maybe it doesn't matter actually. If I end, I think it's not. It's better to separate, even though I'm gonna repeat myself because it's gonna be easier to understand. But like, I could just call this function from the other one, and then I just put the heights, just put the point for the heights after I call the function on the thing here. But it just makes it kind of confusing. Because the thing that is going to generate the connection is going to be the indices. So I'm going to repeat myself there. I don't think it matters that much. Hmm. Whatever. So this is going to be basically the same as this one. And I'm going to change put arrow radios. So the question is, after I do this, actually, no, it has to be for all the circle, for all the segments. So after I do this, I add the points based on the tangent, I think. So the question is, I think the tangent is already normalized, is velocity normalized. So it should be just the direction of the vector. So I think I can just multiply that by the height and get the row height. And then put 1.2. So the question is this one. So how do I make the connection between the things? So I think the way that it works, the main question I have is whether or not you should put the in this index of the first point twice to close the triangle, or if you just you should put only the first three. But I think it's gonna be basically the same function here, same calculation. The only difference is that I'm gonna connect with the point. The point is the last one. The problem is how do I should probably actually do both of those things in the same. This one because it's gonna be easier. Since I'm using the same array for both of these things, it becomes very difficult to know because the values are gonna be arbitrary of the length of the thing. So like how I'm gonna know what index the arrow stopped and the cylinder started. I can find a way to do that, but it's just massively complicated. So it might be better to just do the indices here. But then it's also kind of annoying. So let me think about this. This might be more difficult than I thought. Because of this thing that's... Because of the length of the other one. So maybe what I do is get the length before I add anything. And then I just do the indices based on that. So like I get the length, then plus. So that would be like considering the first time that I add should be the zero index, for example. So like get base or int base index equals points dot length. So then after I add everything, I just do it based on this index here. This might be the easiest way. So I think I'm gonna do it on the same function. Hmm. After I do this, I'll have to put the indices on this one as well. And here, what would I do? I said just a number, it doesn't need to be. The problem is how do I... So there's two things. One is to figure out how to get the last element, the index of the last element. I guess I can just do this spread. So yeah, so this should be like the new length minus the first one. So maybe here just puts and this is very confusing for me to think about. Because I don't know how people go about like thinking on how to structure this. Like here they are doing the like four. So I guess because they are doing four, is it probably means that you should pass. So in order to close the triangle, you need to pass the four indices. You want the start of the triangle. So I think for all of like it's gonna be basically the same thing here. To generate the yeah, but the problem here is that they're connecting from two different segments, let's say. So it's kind of different. Because on the other one I only have 1 point in the other end. So it will always be the same, I think. Yeah, but this I think probably indicates to me, since they're doing four over the iteration, you start on the like 0 in the beginning point that created the beginning vertex of the triangle, then you finish on the same thing. So you have to put the same index twice to finish the triangle. So I think that what this means is that I should probably like do the same thing, but then just change for the last one. And change the values here, but probably put the 4. So let me see if I understand this. And this is kind of the issue. Yeah, because here they are connecting, so the eye is supposed to be the one from the outside. It's from the iteration of the segments. Yeah, so I'm gonna try to do it without thinking about this. So I think and the question is how do I rotate there? I think it's plus J. So this would be the first one, the second one would be base index plus J plus 1. Then the other one would be the height, which is the last. I don't need to put here. Oh, but actually you need 3. So unless I put A is the last one, the last index to close. So the way that I'm imagining is that it starts at 1, so the first one, then goes to the right to get the other one on the iteration of the circle. Then it goes to the top, which is the last index, which is the height, the last point. And then it comes back to the first. And it does that over and over. So let me just try that and see what happens. Oh, but I have to. So first I call this function here outside. I should probably pull this. I have to put here as well. No, so no. I think it's just easier to call it from here. No, so I have to change the other one as well. Because of the length of the other one. So it's easier to get the length from here, from this function. So I think it's easier to just call this one from the other. I put it as the first argument. This is base last. Here puts indices. I need the tangents, sure. I guess I could calculate the tangents there, but doesn't make sense. So let me see what happens. Be right back. I think it's size on the vector. Yeah, size. This might be a problem. Hmm. Yeah, so something is wrong. Hmm. Let's try this first. Hmm. They are doing it in the same way. Which is weird. Hey, what's up? So I'm gonna test to see what happens if I don't. I'm gonna change the name of the file as well. If I don't add the last one here, but I think it's not gonna matter. I think probably a better question to ask here. Search ads. Now we fixed the issue with the line is because the way that I was adding there was probably messing up the other. But obviously there's something wrong here. So the problem is the way that I'm doing the cylinder. And there's also the same pattern from before. Hmm. So I'm not really sure if it's supposed to be creating at here or here. Because I think that this should be the endpoint. But it might be because of the order that I'm generating the segments there. But like, because I'm generating based off the Bezier curve equation. But it should be, I think, like the first one should be at the origin, I think. First vertices. Then the end should be here probably. So how can I debug this? I guess I can look into the way that they do. I think the way that they are doing is gonna be the same way that they are doing the the same way that they do the segments. So I guess I can look into the 3GS class if there is any, but there probably is a 3GS class. The easiest thing to do is just to look into the 3GS class. I'm gonna imagine that this is one. Actually, I can just look here. So let me. So height segments, yeah, it should be one by default. Yeah, so I think I am passing one. So 3, 4, 3. So it's gonna be one. So the outer loop doesn't matter. It's like the easiest thing to do is just to copy this stuff. So I don't have to think about this. I want to get this over with because these are the most annoying part. So it's both this, creating the arrow, and then it's gonna be kind of annoying to think about like what is the best way to structure that, because I'm probably gonna pass the position of the nodes from the graph class. So, and I think that the warning there that is showing is just because I'm initializing everything on the constructor of the class, which is probably not the way that they design it should be, but I think it's easier to just task like this. So once I figure that out, everything out, I'm probably gonna move everything out of the class. So like just have the default values that the class has. I think that it doesn't matter if I like if you don't specify an empty constructor, then Godot complains because the memnew macro requires you to have a empty constructor on the class, I think. But I think that if I have an empty constructor and then just initialize values, then it probably still works. Or I can just have the default values on the class, which is if you initialize the class and don't pass any values, then it's gonna work for those ones. And then all the other values I'm going to set outside of the class. So I'm gonna put probably 2 constructors. But then it's kind of annoying because you pass, like I'm getting the position of the 2 different spheres. And then in order to calculate the points, you need to, I think it's probably not that difficult, but it's just annoying. You just decrease the radius probably. So the thing here is probably gonna be radial stop, which is the height that I have there. Because this is gonna be 0 probably. Because V is 0. So Y is gonna be, height segment is gonna be 1. Y is gonna be 0. This is only gonna run once, I think. So this is gonna be 0. So this is gonna be the radial stop. So just rotating. Next row. Where's the index here? So this should be base knife. Yeah, so since I'm passing there, it should be easier. Let me think about this. It's only, so it's gonna be, if you're running once, it's gonna be only the first one. This row here. So they are pushing Oh, they're pushing 6. So it's A, B, D, and B, C, D. That's confusing. Is the index or H axis the correct indices? The easiest thing to do is just to copy exactly how they're doing here, because I have on the other function there, I'm passing the indices as well on the one that I'm creating the cylinders. So I can just push here, but I'm not really sure that's the best. So I don't understand why they put 3 or 6 for each iteration. So the Y should be, yeah, I should remove the outer loop then. It puts height segments. So I'm gonna copy this stuff and see if it works there. So this would be A. At A I have there. And there is C, which is gonna be, and D would be the height on my case, which is the last index. So these are the heights. Since so I think that's what they are doing there. So A, B, last one, B, C. So the problem is, I'm not sure if this makes sense, because I think that the reason why they're pushing 6 for each iteration is because they're creating the quad on each iteration, just through triangles, and they're connecting like 2 different cylinders together. But since I only have a point there, but maybe it doesn't matter. Maybe it's the same thing. Oh, I'm putting this as a float. I should close this. This doesn't work. I'm just gonna copy the way that they are doing, so I can start focusing on the next thing I'm gonna do is create another class that is gonna inherit from Camera 3D, and I'm gonna see if I can't. I'm probably gonna like the first thing that I'm gonna try is actually to do from the other projects that I did. I'm gonna figure out. I have to remember which projects I was working on that I created the events, which are not perfect probably, but I think they work fine on the other project that I was doing. for the panning and zooming. I'm not sure if the microphone's working or. And sometimes when I touch, it starts messing up the thing, and there's no way for me to know whether or not is fucked up or not. Let's push back. So I'm gonna see if I can figure out, or if I can copy from the other projects and then just translate the data structures in order to. The problem is that on the other one I was using unproject, I think. So this is kind of the issue. But I'm probably, so I'm gonna look for videos, I think, and also study the class, Chemistry 3D class. But I think that the way that it's gonna work is probably you create a class that inherits from Chemistry 3D, then you specify the function GUI input. Then on the function GUI input, you do some, like, you create variables, reference variables with the type based on the event in order to check what kind of event it was. Then inside of the thing there, you create, you call functions that you create. They're gonna take the values of the inputs, which probably have the mouse position. And then based on that, you do the calculation to do the dragging of to do the panning and the zooming. So check for the wheel or check for the thing, and then you do the panning and zooming. The problem is gonna be to translate the mouse coordinates into world coordinates from the visualization. That's when it gets annoying. So I'm gonna look for if someone else has done this already. Oh, I fucked up there, I think. Oh no, it is base. Yeah. So I'm doing off the base. It's still the same thing. Hmm. This is annoying. So I think an easier thing to do is just to copy this one. Yeah, I'm gonna copy this one. Copy here. And then just remove this from the top. The only problem is that it's interesting that here is starting at 1. So I guess what I can do is like here, our base index plus 1. I'm gonna test to see if I can do it just like this, and then I don't. If this works, then I don't need the last index here, Yeah, so I'm gonna. Oh, the problem is if I don't have the other. Hmm. So let me. Because the two different indexes are just connecting the two different things, two different circles. So the only difference on the cylinder is just that I only have 1 point. But this is kind of the problem because the indices are gonna be. So the let me think about this. So the outside, the J should be the last index always. That's the issue. So the easiest thing is just to test to see if it works. So just replace J by just the easiest thing that I can think. Replace J by the last index. I think like in the if this doesn't work, then it's probably better to just repeat the other stuff. And then just put the radios. But the thing that like is not very good because then you're creating a bunch of points in the same location. Which doesn't seem that it is the best thing to do. But I think this is probably not gonna work because it feels wrong. It doesn't make sense to multiply here. I don't understand why the simple way that I was doing doesn't work. This is what is kind of weird to me. Like why doesn't it? Because the way that I'm adding here, I'm just adding based on the rotation. So I add all the points that make up the segments for the cylinder or the circle surface. And then on the very ends, I add the last points, which is gonna be, in my mind, on the heights of the thing. So it would make sense to me that the way to connect is just to create a triangle. It could be the order maybe, but it should be counterclockwise. Like assuming the base index is correct, then maybe if I start from 1 here and then I remove, maybe this will fix. Actually, let me try this. Because in my mind, like, you get 1 point, then you move to the other, then you go to the base. That should, which is the top one. So it should be just one face here. Because it doesn't make sense to create a triangle like inside of the thing. Yeah, so let me. The problem with this one is that is not gonna create the base. This is the issue. Hmm. So this is another annoying thing I have to figure out. Because the thing is, I'm not sure if I just put the vertices. The base index should be the last point. So like if the indices array is bigger than the other one, I'm not sure. I think that it's gonna give a warning if they don't have the right proportions, but probably it doesn't matter if the indices is bigger. So what I'm thinking about now is just what is the easiest way to produce both the triangle that is gonna be like the surface of the cylinder and the triangle that is the face. I think the easiest way is just creates the push the two. So like this one would be just the base index. So like starts from the like surface and then connects to the center. And then I add another one that starts from the surface and connects to the last index, which is the height. It could be that the last index is also +1 here, because I'm not really sure if this is gonna be the right calculation. Actually, this doesn't make sense. Yeah, it's just the point size, the last index. So let me think about this. I'm gonna delete this. I'm gonna try this way. So first face you add is from the tree that make up the base. So maybe you should start from the base. So I guess I can test. See if it works. I think that it makes more sense if it starts from the base than goes to the on the surface. But yeah, so let me test like this first. Then use another one that starts from the top. And then remove this one. I don't see why this wouldn't work. The problem is that it's kind of like a black box because I don't know what's happening under the hood. So I'm not because even though like there's multiple different ways of creating a counterclockwise triangle with 3 vertices. So it's unclear which one should pass first because the rotation is going to be the same. But I think that the connection, if you pass the connection that makes is different. So it might be the case that I have to add the point multiple different times on the same spots as well, just to create because of this difference between the lengths of the things. So this might. So if that's the case, then I have to change the other the other thing there. Yeah, so this is the one of the issues. And it's still doing the same thing here. So it seems that it's creating like the triangle on the surface. Not the way that I imagined. I don't understand why the y is half the height. That doesn't make sense. So I think that's for each. Like it's just recreating the same points multiple times. But if the height segment is only 0, doesn't make sense. You only creates the point once, and it does the values based on that value. But I think the y is gonna be the half height. Now this is it seems weird to me. Because it's assuming that the y is gonna be the position and also the half height's the zone. It's kind of weird. Because v is gonna be, I'm assuming that the height segment is gonna be 1. So v is gonna be 0 in the beginning. The radial stop is gonna be 1. So just like doing a circle between based on z, x and z, and then using half the heights. And the height should be obviously the height of the thing. So it's changing the y for each vertex should be on the height, but that's very confusing. So I guess it's just like based on the width, but it's still kind of. Yeah, because I think that's so I'm confusing the things. So the way that I'm imagining is that I'm creating a point on top, and then I'm just rotating at the base. And here I think they are creating this like sections. So it's the same logic as the segments. But if you only have one, then it's kind of confusing because you're only creating one circle. So how do you know the vertex that should make the connection on the height? They're all based on half height. I guess it's gonna run twice anyway. Yeah, because it runs the one is when it's 0. So it goes from half height to the height. Yeah, so I think the minimum amount of times it's gonna run is twice. So that does make sense. The next iteration is gonna create the circle again, but it creates the first one that it creates from the bottom up, let's say. So the first circle that it creates, everything's on the same point because of the y. That doesn't make sense because it rotates there. How does it make the width of the thing? I think that on the second iteration is gonna be 1. So it's gonna be radius top minus bottom plus radius top. This is gonna be radius bottom. So I think it starts from the top and then goes to the bottom in the next iteration. No, it should be the other way around. So the first iteration is gonna be 0. So it's just the radius is just the radius top. So yeah, you should start from the top. So it's calculating the thickness based on the radius here. And it is creating 2 sections. So I think that what it does when the radius is like a point, when it decreases the size, it just adds the same point in the same position over and over again. So like the easiest thing that I can do here is probably to add the points at each iteration here. So at the end, no, but let me think. And because then I have to think about the indices. So do I loop over again outside and then add? I can do modulos through there, but it's kind of annoying. So like if j modules through equals 0, it was different than, yeah, but then, yeah. Like it's more complicated to put the if statement. I'm not sure if it's gonna work. But what I'm thinking about doing is that based on this here, I think what they are doing is just they are creating the same amount of points. So they're creating two different circles basically. So regardless of how wide the second circle is gonna be, and then they're connecting the same way that they connect the other one. Just connecting cylinders, but the only difference is that when you want to create the arrow shape, the other one is just gonna add a point on the same size because of the radius, like overlapping everything. I think that's what's happening here. So what I can do on the other one is just add the same point multiple times. I guess for each iteration, I just add the point because they are gonna add the points on each iteration, and then I just copy. So I'm gonna try to do that because it is this thing to do. So just yeah, let me think about this actually. So it should be. So how do I calculate loss? Oh, no, this is the other one. So here, a tangent. Oh, this is another thing that I forgot. This here is using the same name there. Let's fucking it up here. Yeah, so now it should be. Let me see what happens. I think it's still not gonna work, but so what I'm gonna do is just pass this calculation to the top there, or these two values here, and then I just add on each iteration. I just add the arrow points, and then I'm gonna copy the way that they do the indices. First, let me see what happens after I change the tangent here. The tangent name there. I think it's obviously gonna complain as well. But like this is the thing is if I want to, so I have to see how they cap. Generate cap. Save the index of the first center vertex. So the radius is gonna be radius bottom. Is it adding twice? It's kind of bad, but I think it doesn't matter. It's probably the only way to do it. So I think that they're adding one more iteration. So I can do that is just add one more iteration to create the circle and then just change to add the center points on each iteration as well. That I add the points. It's very confusing. So maybe for this part, it's probably better to look into the Godot's code. I'm trying to see if I can think off the top of my head. But the main problem is that I'm uncertain about the winding order and probably the easiest way to test would be to create like a simple geometry like a triangle and then see, but I don't want to do that. But maybe I should do that. So create another class, array mesh, then inherit. So basically do the same thing that I'm doing there and just change the or I can create it on the same class as well. But create another function, just change the name of the function. That's the same thing. Still complaining there. The problem is that the value there is going to be wrong because of the way the position that it's creating. So I think that's is the position that I have here as well. That doesn't make sense. But I'm gonna try and see what happens. Yeah, the problem is that it's gonna be different because of the way that they are doing. So I can't copy the way that they do the indices because it's a different way. I would have to loop over again, I think. And then so like create another loop and then on the other loop I add the same points. I'm gonna test like this first. And probably this is another thing that I have to in order to do the face in the bottom, I think you have to add the vertices on the same position, another iteration, and then just change. So basically do what I'm doing here, but just change the final point that I'm adding so that instead of being the one on the top is the one in the center. So the point position. And then you do the same thing basically here. The thing that is confusing is that the order matters, obviously, that you add there, because the index should represent the order. So I think this is not going to work because of the way that's. I also think that the position is probably wrong because of what is showing there on Godot. So I think the position of the arrow points is wrong, probably. But I'm not really sure why, because it should be the tangents. So the tangent should be, the last tangent should be in the same place that the should be the vector pointing in the direction of the curve at the last point because of the iteration here. And it should be normalized already. So maybe I should do tangent normalize. Because I think for this calculation of the first circle, it doesn't matter. So maybe it should be the normalized version of it, like, because there I'm normalizing the velocity, so I think this is another thing I'm gonna try. Just tangent normalized. Yeah, same thing. But now it's not showing the error there, so I'm gonna compile one more time just to test this thing here, just see if it changes the magnitude of the thing. Maybe if I normalize, it does work. Because for the other one, the only thing that matters is the direction of the vector, not the size. So even if it's really big, it doesn't matter because I'm just using that to calculate the normal and binormal. I'm getting the cross product. So I think if I normalize, probably will be better, but not. It's not gonna. And I think that is not only the indices because of the way that is showing up there. So it should be the value here that I'm calculating correctly. I think probably the easiest way is just to copy there and do the same thing that they are doing through Jazz, just pass through. So basically, it would be like adding another section. So you just add another section, you just decrease the value of the radius to 0 probably. Yeah, I'm gonna try to do that. But the thing is that I need to add two different sections. So yeah, so maybe that's what I should do actually. So before I call the indices for the curve, I call the generates circles again. The only difference is gonna be that I pass. I create on the other function so I don't mess up the other one, but I change the value of the binormal normal or value of the radius so that everything is on 1 point. So I'm gonna test because I think that's probably the easiest way to do this. Yeah, so I'm gonna try that. So let me think about this. I'm just gonna delete these few things here. Hmm. Yeah, now I'm thinking that it might be better if I just restructure the other function because now I'm gonna have to call it 3 times. So it's gonna be very redundant. But essentially what I'm thinking about doing is just doing 2 different iterations. So like on the final thing there, I just create another. The thing is I have to think about like I'm gonna have to maybe I don't need to close the curve. I think it's probably better if I don't close because it's less vertices. So maybe it is better to leave like this. Because in the way that I'm gonna use, the curve is gonna connect on 2 different spheres, so you're not gonna see the base of the curve. So it doesn't matter if it's like hollow or if it's full. If the cap, if I top the cap, or if I cap the top or bottom. But maybe it is worth it to see it anyway and just put the conditions here to have the option to do it, but it's gonna be very annoying because then I have to spend a bunch of time there studying the like either this one or the one on 3GS. And I don't want to do that. So I'm thinking about whether or not it's worth it to change the first function there. So I change this function so that the only value that changes is the radius. I think is worth it to do this. Yeah, so let me think of this. Everything else I think it would be the same. It's just calculating one additional point based on the heights. Hmm. I was thinking about like another option, the way that I was thinking about earlier, but it's gonna be more annoying, I think, because like another way is that you create another section on the curve itself, but the problem is that the equations work based on the start point and the end points, and then it's gonna break the start and end point by an iteration. So what I can do outside is start from the end points and then generate the other points. But maybe this is the best way to do it. So just recalculate again. But I think that's probably not necessary because all I need is the last point. In a way, it is kind of what I'm doing here. But the thing is, like, I'm not really sure if this is correct. So like, I can do it like this, but like it would, if this is incorrect, it would be the same problem because I would have to pass this as then endpoints of the other, and it wouldn't work. It's probably easier to get the final points, the final tangents, and then just multiply by this value. It needs to be the whole vector because the direction. That's the issue. Yeah, so I think that's so let me think about this. Yeah, so I'm gonna change this function so it accepts. Then here, I remove all of these things. Let me change. Probably change this name here as well. I'm gonna leave it like this for now. So the only thing I do here, here is 0. So this one would be the final point position, and this one would be the arrow point position. And that arrow height normal. As the tangents cross. Sure, there's the best way to say this. So let me, yeah, test like this. So what I'm thinking about now is that I'm generating another circle at the end of the curve, which is in the same position at the final point. The only difference is the radius. But the problem is that I'm gonna have to figure out how to close the thing, which is gonna fuck up the indices. It's annoying. Yeah, I'm gonna see on the curve there if they have a functionality to close the tube. But first, let me see if this works. So I generate one circle at the end of the curve with the same position, but with the radial size, the arrow radius, and then I generate another section, but the only difference is that it has 0 width, let's say. So it just adds a bunch of points in the same position. If this works, then I have to think about how to. So let me see on the there's a on the curve here. It's easier to find. Right? Not frames. Here. And I don't think that they have functionality to. Oh, maybe they do. So there's a second argument. So the only thing that changes, so if closed is equal to true, it's gonna be 0. Hmm. So you're just adding an additional thing. So it generates a circle for each segment. So when it's closed, it generates another circle for the zero index. Hmm. So yeah, the easiest thing to do is just put another condition there in the loop, the outer loop, and then just put for the first iteration circles, it generates another one, and then for the arrow, I just call the generate thing twice. But it's yeah, I guess it's because you're generating on the same position. Then yeah, but it's kind of weird. Like so maybe they do change the indices based on the closed thing, though. But I think that they don't. Yeah. So like, how does this work? Because even though like it seems that in order to close the thing, the tube, they just generate a circle twice on the same spots. But if the indices don't change, then how is it possible that it's gonna connect them in the like in a different way, rather than connecting like on the surface, it connects on the across the thing. This is the thing that doesn't make a lot of sense. Yeah. Obviously, I can try to see what happens. Yeah, so it's still fucked there. It seems like it's generating on the wrong place as well. It also seems that it fucked up the zooming. Hmm. Oh, it's because of this thing. So I'm gonna try, well, normalizing, but hmm. So the other approach would be to, so like to put like the thing is gonna depend on the way that I want to organize outside, but I do think that's probably better to set things up in a way that you can have the option of having a directed edge and undirected. So I'm probably gonna have to put a condition inside of the loop, and it's gonna be like the thing is that I can make it based on this variable here. So like on the last iteration, I can do the arrow based on the same values here, and then they just change the. Yeah, I do it twice if that's. But it is kind of annoying because then it makes it more confusing to think about like outside of the class, how to think about the positions that I'm gonna pass. But maybe that's better actually, because then it's always the same. Like the position from the outside, it doesn't matter. I think that's actually better now that I think about it. Because the segments is easy to change anyway. Yeah, but the issue is the size. Yeah, that's the problem. So this is the issue. Is if you do it inside of the curve, then the size of the arrow depends on the size of the segment. That's the problem. So the more segments you have, the more like you don't have control over it, unless you do other conditions where you change. So I think it has to be separate. That's the thing. So I think I need to make it work out like this. So it might be a problem because of the value of the tangents. I think that's the only explanation that makes sense to me. Because multiplying by 1.2 shouldn't be that different. And it could be I can test a different value of the radius. So I'm gonna do that. So. But the problem is that if it's one, still think it's gonna, because the radius there on the curve is sure. Like it should be a value that is a constant that is always gonna give smallest thing possible. So if it's zero, is just getting the position for just pushing the position each time. The other thing that's I guess this would be the easiest one, but it's not very good. Is to create the arrow from the outside and then just use the primitive from Godot and then just connect the positions outside. But I want to avoid doing that because I think it's much better if I can just create all the vertices at once on the same geometry, and it becomes a lot easier to think about. It's still fucked here. So let me see. I'm gonna put the. Let me think about this. 'Cause, like the thing that I don't understand is that this one should be creating there. Maybe it is creating twice, and it doesn't matter because it's the same position, and the indices don't change. And it's weird that the shape is completely different. That's the thing that is. It must be because of this. The only explanation. So maybe we can multiply the point position instead of the tangents. Let's see if this works. The question is this something with the indices? So I guess it's because of the radios. So let me test to see if I just put the radios here again. We're just gonna create another section there. I guess it's because of the plane there. That's but if it is one, you should be counting towards the position. It's kind of confusing that it seems that it's adding the thing to the end as well. So I'm not really sure if that means that the way that I'm creating the curve, the last points that it adds is on the beginning, let's say. But I don't think that matters that much because the main point of the line is to connect two different things. So as long as you're able to pass, actually it might matter because, but I can just change the names if that's the case. Like just put the end on the beginning. So as long as it makes sense, sure. And this stuff I'm only gonna be able to know once I add the two different spheres, and then I get the positions of the spheres, and then add one to the other. But it should be easy to fix, I think. Yeah, it's confusing because so it might be an indices thing. It doesn't make sense. Hmm. So what is good now? Like the thing is, it doesn't make sense to be the indices either. Oh, maybe it does actually. Yeah, I think it does because this is fixed. Hmm. Yeah, because I'm making the curve based on the curve segments. I think that's the issue. So this thing just add two here, but hmm. I think if I do it like this, then it doesn't matter. It should be two times, so I'm gonna test like this. Like the amount of here that is over the segments is just how many circles you need to create the arrow. So it should always be true. So I'm not sure if that's gonna fix the shape there, or if it's also the value. Like I don't understand why. Like it should be the. I think the value should be correct. Maybe it is. This is probably. I think if I get the last point and I just multiply, it should be better. I think than getting the tangent because it should maintain the direction. It's just like uh, it's just like multiplying by scalar, so you're just gonna change the magnitude of the vector. So the final point is gonna be at the height of the arrow. So it's probably better to use the final point. Still looks like it didn't work. Still the same thing. Oh, what the fuck is going on? Thing is, I was getting like a similar thing when I was doing the trying to do the curve with the incorrect values, I think. So what can I do to test? I think probably the easiest thing is just to either copy from the easiest of easiest would be to just implement the primitive from Godot and put the positioner. But I don't think I don't want to do that. So the second easiest thing to do is just to copy from 3GS or Godot the functionality and then separate and then just use the same points, same point vector and same indices vector. But I want to see if I can understand what is going on here, why it's not working. Because I don't see. Let me put radius here to see if it's gonna remove the other thing. It's basically the same calculation, so just creating an additional circle, the same position. So let me see what happens with this. The only explanation should be this thing, but I don't see why this is wrong, because it's just multiplying by the scalar. This should be 1.2. 1.2 times the point position. And the rest is the same. I should be creating just another section with the same radius. The same thing. Hmm. If I do it from outside. But it doesn't matter. I think the only explanation that makes sense for that kind of shape is the values that I'm using to build here. I don't think it makes sense to be the indices because it should be just two additional segments. Maybe it's one additional segment. Yeah, let me try one and see what happens. But I don't think that's gonna work because it should be true just because it's the number. It's based on the number of segments you have. Like the amount of circles you create. But I think I'm gonna try anyway. So the only explanation is this, but I don't see why this. Because the vector overloads the multiplication there, and it should be just multiplying by scalar. So it doesn't make sense. Yeah. It could be the interpolation that is wrong. Or not the interpolation, the overload thing. I'll be right back. I think I forgot to put the thing there. That's the same thing. That should be the value there. So maybe the multiplication is wrong. It's kind of weird that, like, even if the position is wrong, like, it doesn't make sense for it must be the indices or something like that. Because it doesn't make sense, sure. And now I put your one here. To create that shape, even if the final distance was off, you should create another shape, I think. Because just creating two different cylinders with the same radius. Yeah, but I guess. Hmm. Because it should be creating the points from the center of whatever. So like even if the position was off, I think it should be showing like a another section there and just connecting somewhere else. So it might be the indices. So it's probably better to just try to copy from the Node.js. Just create the function to create the cylinder separately. But it still would be the same problem that I was getting before of having to get the last index from the curve. Yeah, this doesn't make any sense to me. So I wanna test the true one again. If it doesn't work, I'm just gonna go back to the other way that I was trying to do. Maybe I should just draw simple geometry to understand the connection between the indices and the vertices. First, so like draw a simple quad and then let's see, circle. This seems weird to me. I don't understand how this works. It's based on the j, so first iteration is gonna be, but even then it's gonna be -1. So how the fuck does this make sense? Because here is starting from the last one. I guess this is the reason why it's kind of weird there. 'Cause I think it starts from from the end of the thing and then goes backwards. That seems very weird to me. So I guess I can touch put 0 there and see if it's still going to be the same. I just remove this section here. I'm going to comment out the function there and remove the +2 and then remove the first part there. Just see what happens if it still grades the curve. It's kind of confusing to me. I don't understand why they did it like that. It seems, as far as I understand, I might be misunderstanding what's going on there. But it seems that they created in such a way that they create the connections from the end of the curve. But like from the last points that were added to the beginning. But I think if I just remove the first part, it might not work. Obviously, it doesn't have anything to do with the last part, but you might have something to do, but I don't think so. Let me see if I can understand this. Like circle segments. Oh, circle segments is the circle, not the curve segments. Yeah, but it's still kind of weird. I guess the reason why they do it like this is because of the winding order. So I was confusing the circle segments with the curve segments. So let me see. I'm curious to see what happens if I remove this. I think this is from the other stuff, so it doesn't draw anything. Hmm. It's probably because of the winding order, but it's still weird because of the rotation, so I'm not really sure. Or maybe it just messes up the whole thing. I don't. This explanation doesn't make sense. Sure. So I think the second value, the one that for I, well, the second value should be just connecting the points in the same circle. And the other one should be connecting them on different sections. So I think if I remove the segments and I change the values of the sign, it seems to me based on the algorithm there that is generating from the last point to the. But I'm not really sure if that makes sense because like J starts at 1, so it should be from the beginning of the segments. But it doesn't make sense to me. So I do think that is like going from the beginning of the segment and the other parts connecting the points in the same thing. So it's getting basically the same points on two different ones. And what is the last point? Hmm. It starts from the beginning of the curve, but then for the iteration it goes backwards, I think. Not sure though, if that makes sense. It like shouldn't matter, I think. But it definitely does because when they change it doesn't show anything. It's probably because of the winding order, because it's like on the value. So like it goes backwards from the final of the circle. But that's kind of weird as well because it should change like it's changing the value of the index of each one. It's like it's skipping the first thing. I think it's more likely that it's something to do with the indices than it is to do with the value of the arrow there. The reason why it's not working here. But it doesn't make sense because it could be both things. Because I'm just generating two more times. So I don't see why it would be the indices if I just put it like this. Hmm. So it's still doing this now. Let me think about this. So what is going on? So I'm pretty sure that it wasn't doing that before I changed things here. Yeah, that's weird. Oh, maybe it's because of the... But I don't see why it would be the radios there. Doesn't make sense. It could be this stuff here. Let me see if the thing goes away. Once. If it goes away, I'm gonna test again because now I don't know. So I'm gonna put this thing again, then add true here, 2 segments. Let's ChatGPT again. I'm gonna save this like this. Each time that you change there, you need to. Oh, so this thing is coming from somewhere else. What is this? Oh, so it's not coming from the other thing. I should have removed this. So maybe it is working. I'm gonna test that again. No. Each time you change the class that you create on the modules, you need to remove and then add again to see the change. I didn't know this before. So maybe it is working because maybe it is adding here. But now obviously I need to test. But I think it's not gonna work anyway because it wasn't showing, so it must be. but obviously is worth testing again. I'm just gonna add true here. So I'm gonna test like this first and see if anything happens there. And I'm gonna change the radius. I still don't understand this explanation here. This is the problem, is that ChatGPT is always gonna be like favoring whatever you say, so I can't trust too much. I think if you remove that thing, it fundamentally shouldn't change, like from the, because it's only shifting the things, let's say. Maybe it does change fundamentally. But I think the main thing that it changes is the winding order, probably. Because like the thing that is kind of confusing to me is that this part here is starting from the first, like it gets the value of the circle segments, and then is multiplying that with this thing. So they understand how this value is gonna be used to find the other, to find the vertex on the other array. It doesn't make sense. Because it's shifting by the circle segments. But the thing is, like, I'm not 100% sure if I understand correctly how it works. Because in my mind, the indices array should be an array that has the indices that are going to be used on the other one. So for example, if you put this value of 0 on this here, is going to get the value on the 0 index of this array here. And that's how I imagine. So for my mind, it doesn't make sense to start from this value, because then you're skipping a bunch of values. This is what I'm trying to clarify here. So obviously I can't really know for sure. So I'm gonna change the values there and see what happens. I'm gonna make it a lot bigger, so that's I know for sure. Let's make like 3 times the radius. Yeah, I think that this answer doesn't make sense just because of the way that I asked the question there. I'm pretty sure I did. I'm gonna look for resources about the indexing, but it's kind of difficult to think about good search terms. I want to see if I can find videos or articles that explain like the logic behind the way people usually think about creating the indices. Just see if I am thinking about it in the correct way. And this is the problem, doesn't show anything. So I assume that I'm doing something wrong there. And now it's also not zooming properly. So it probably means that I did something incorrect. Let's put like this. I don't know what can be wrong here. I'm pretty sure there's something going on with the values because of the way I wasn't being able to zoom and move properly. And this happens. I thought initially it was because of the way that this scene is cached. It might be something like this, so I'm probably gonna look into the scene file there next time. But since when I changed the thing, it went back to normal, then I think it's because of the So whenever you do something that doesn't make sense with the values there, it fucks up the visualization. So like it's a runtime bug that's for whatever reason doesn't like doesn't throw an error here, but then it fucks up the visualization. Or maybe because of this thing, but it shouldn't make sense. Or maybe because I'm doing the tangent with the this height here. Like I'm multiplying the tangent from the previous points. Hmm. To get the binormal. So maybe what I should do here is change to multiply by this. I'll test this. But it's still kind of weird because it should be showing something at least, I think. Because the values are different, obviously, for the radios. And the problem is that this is going to be the same, I think, because it's 1. The radius is 1. So I should probably put a very small value here as well. Do this again. But I don't think that's gonna fix stuff. I think this is the last thing that I'm gonna try. Then I'm going to think more about this because I'm not really sure what is going on. I'm gonna spend more time. I think I'm gonna watch these videos again about the index to see if I'm thinking about the wrong way because this is very confusing to me. So I'm gonna spend more time clarifying what is going on here to create the indices. Because I'm not really sure if it is because of that or some value that I have there. So once I clarify this, then I'm gonna be able to. And I think the other way to go about it is just leave it like this and then create separately the thing. But I still gonna have problems. So and I need to clarify the main thing. The main problem with this is that like I don't understand very well the logic behind the way that they think about to create the indices. And I think it's kind of confusing because it is kind of like a black box. But not, it should be simple. Like if it should be simple if the assumption that I have is correct. But I think it's kind of confusing because the order in which you put the indices there and how, like, I think that the amount of vertices you have changes how the framework is going to build the triangles based on the order you put the indices. So I think that's the problem. So you can have a situation where you have this exact same indices, and then by putting more vertices, it changes the geometry because of the winding order. So that's the thing that I'm not 100% sure. But it's hard to think about search terms for this stuff. Obviously, so now the good thing is that it's not doesn't have a zoom thing issue anymore. But obviously it's not creating anything. Oh no, it still has the zoom issue. So there's probably and it's probably here that it's supposed to create because here is the problem with the zoom. So I think it's probably an issue with the values that I'm passing there. Pretty sure. Because the same thing happened the other time. So I think it's supposed to be creating here, and I'm the values that I'm passing there for some reason are not correct. Maybe it could be this thing here. Hmm. It might be because of the I deleted the thing here. Hmm. No, but this is supposed to be creating from for this thing here. Yeah, I don't think that's the issue. So the last thing that I'm gonna check is I'm gonna comment this out and I'm gonna see if the zoom is still fucks up there because I'm pretty sure that is because of this. Then I'm gonna spend some time. I'm gonna rewatch the videos and then study a little bit more about the indices, and then I'm gonna spend some time trying to understand why they have the circle segments here to create the indices, because in my mind it's kind of confusing. So like assuming that so let's say it starts at 1, so it's gonna be 0 first. Then this is gonna be 0, so A is gonna be 0. It's gonna be 0. Yeah, this is the problem. It's gonna be annoying. Should do a bunch of times. So this is the thing. This is gonna be 0. This is gonna be 26. So I think it's connecting like the beginning of one with the end of the other one. Oh, so it's shifting to the right, I think, based on the segments. I think I understand. Yeah, it is kind of confusing, but I think I understand. So it starts at the circle segments. That problem I have to do in my mind on the second iteration to make sure this is what's going on. But it's doing this based on the J, so it shifts the index by the circle segment amount. So that it creates the connection between one cylinder and the other. So if the issue is not the... So when I add two actual ones here and I add the function, the indices should be correct. Because I'm just adding two extra circles. So if it's not the indices, then it's something with the values here that I don't understand. That is wrong. This one I don't see a reason why it should be the same. It could be the index because it's the difference in radius. So it could be the issue. Yeah, because then if I use the same logic to create the indices, it's gonna try to create the same. Like yeah, that's the problem. So maybe if I add by 3, but then I think it fucks up. So I guess one thing that I can test is to put the same radius and see if the zooming there is fucked up or not. Because the problem is if I do the same radius, there isn't a way for me to know if it worked or not. Because the shape is gonna be the same. But I think with the zooming I can tell. But it might be the like when you change the value of the radius, it fucks up the connection with the indices for some reason. Because of the positions of the thing. But yeah, that doesn't make a lot of sense because the index is like it's not related to the position, it's just related to the order. But maybe like it could be the amount that I can try adding three more, but that doesn't make a lot of sense either. Because it should be one iteration by actually it starts at one, so but I think I tried to add only one more and it didn't work. And so now the zooming is fixed, so it should be the problem should be the final points there, and I think it's adding here. So now I'm gonna test what happens if I have the same radius. So I'm gonna test both. If I'm gonna do +2 in the beginning, then do +1, and then +3, but I think it's not gonna work. But I'm gonna see if the zoom there fucks up when I do this. The same size. Because if it doesn't, then it's more likely that the problem is. Yeah, but then it still could be the index. But then I'm gonna have a better idea if it is because of the differences in radius. And so it seems that it is the same. So it didn't mess up the thing. This is interesting. So it should be the values there. So I'm gonna try with +1. No, but if it is, it doesn't make sense to be the indices if this with +2 is working. I have a better idea. Puts here first. So I'm gonna see if the problem is because of I'm putting a cylinder in the same place as the other one. didn't change the zoom. It seems like it didn't work as well. Or it did fuck up the zoom. So I think the issue is when you have different radios, regardless of where it's at, because of the way that the indices work. Maybe it didn't fuck up the zone though. I think it does feel a little bit that it's harder to do it. Maybe it didn't fuck up the zone. Just grouping. No, it does seem that, yeah, now it doesn't get as close as it did before. Hmm. I think I'm gonna stop streaming here. I'm gonna think more about this off stream, as I spent a bunch of time already. So I'm gonna take a break and I'm gonna think more about this. It's gonna be more annoying than I thought it would be. So, and I think, like the thing is that I'm not 100% sure because like it doesn't make a lot of sense to be the indices because it might be like I do expect to be the case if I do it in this way that is not gonna be like the arrow in the way that I want it to be. But like even if I make the positions, I think this is another thing that I'm gonna try to do after I stop streaming. I'm just gonna change these values of positions here. So like I put a vector here, vector 3, a predefined position that it should be a cylinder. So like it might be because of I think if I test this, then it's gonna allow me to clarify whether or not it's because of the relationship between these indices here and the circle. Or like it could be both the indices and the values that I'm trying to add here. But I don't see why it would be the difference in radios though. Because the weird thing is that the indices shouldn't matter as long as it's the same. Because like it's just the same pattern. You should just create the faces anyway. As long as the amount of the circles remains the same, the amount of the rows or the columns. So I'm gonna stop here, and probably next time I'm gonna continue to do this stuff here. So next thing after I figure out this arrow is gonna be to create the class for the camera 3D. Should with the events that I want there, just panning and zooming, I think. Then once I figure this out, I'm gonna think about once I figure out the camera and the arrow, I'm gonna think about which direction I should go. So